This is Pete Moore on Halo Talks NYC. I have the pleasure of having Sir Edward Tock, REX Roundtables, joining us on the show. It's a pleasure to have you on and to see you visually and not just audioly, if that's a word. How you doing? It's good to see you, buddy.
Doing great, Pete. Thanks for having me on. Big fan of everything you guys do, and happy to share what everything's going on in REX Roundtables world right now.
Awesome. So 2020 must have been, you're like like the behind the scenes coach and facilitator of CEOs sharing best practices. So without depressing us too much, tell us how your 2020 went, Edward.
Well, Pete, nobody calls me Edward except my mom when she's angry at me. So let's go to
Dude,
Eddie.
Oh my God, that's when my mom calls me Peter when she's mad at me. I'm not going to do it anymore. I'm just going to call you Eddie. But we'll keep that in. We're not editing anything out. So no, tell me how 2020 went, and you obviously were somewhat of a lifeboat and a confidant to a lot of the top operators in the space. So give us some of your key takeaways and how we're going to come out of this stronger.
Well, it was interesting that when everything started falling apart back in March, everybody, nobody knew what the future was going to hold, and all of us that thought we had the answers thought, oh, this will be over in a month or two. So I sat down with Brent Darden, who's now the interim CEO of Ursa and runs 4 of my REX Roundtables, and we said, okay, what are we going to do? We can either back off, give everybody some space, or we decided, no, we're going to give them 300% more support than they ever had and really go at it and make sure everybody not just comes at us and survives, but comes at us in a really good way. So, we pivoted pretty quick. Usually we meet traditionally 3 times a year for 3 days in person and, conference calls and things in between the meetings. We switched immediately to weekly Zoom calls of 90 minutes per group, with a dozen rounds.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, just here in the US, it was a big switch. And, as stuff was happening, we were trying to stay ahead of it. And, Blair McHaney probably said it the best from MXM, and he's in one of my roundtables for 16 years. He said the speed of information, the speed of learning that happened in the first 3 months of our shutdown was like nothing, anybody's ever seen before. And part of that's because, we've got great entrepreneurs that were helping each other out and sharing. And I was on every single Zoom call on every roundtable. So if one group had a $1 million nugget, we'd get it to everybody within 2 days. Mm-hmm. And so we became, I don't want to say the lifeboat, but our goal was to support everybody, to do what we can to get them not just to come out of this, but to really help them with any roadblocks they're dealing with, to get better organized. I helped organize most of the state alliances you saw, because I know everybody would just to connect them and help them get off the ground.
I feel like, do you think that's something, that was a great effort on your end, and obviously, there was some serious impact, in a relatively short period of time, to get to essential or to least lobby to the point where it was deemed essential, at least by the people in the room that were making those decisions. Do you view our industry's always been good at sharing best practices, but it's usually sharing best practices when I don't compete against you. And I know the REX Roundtable is somewhat set up, strategically like that. And the alliances kind of actually brought everyone together and say, hey, we've got to protect our turf here together. Do you think a result of that is potentially more local collaboration? Or do you think it's hey, we've got a special teams alliance set up for future crises?
Well, I think it's great to see the industry coming together in a stronger way. I still think we've got a long way to go outside the traditional for-profit clubs to really make an impact on the national and the state levels with all the, one, with the media, and 2, with the legislation that's out there. Mm-hmm. And, if you look at the big picture, depending on the market, we were at 22% market penetration. But that also meant 80% of that market didn't care about us.
Right.
So that's kind of why we were behind the eight ball a little on being recognized as essential and vital. And, probably 60, 70% of any area goes to a restaurant. We wish 60% went to a gym or a health club. So that's part of our challenge that I think Brent has done an amazing job at us and the progress he's made in the last couple of months with all the headlight teams of so many. I think that's where I see the cooperation, Pete, at a higher level. He's got about a dozen headlight teams that have come together to focus on different areas, which have just, it never happened before. And that, to Brent's credit, he's gone out and said, okay, I may not be the expert in this one area, but let me go find the 10 experts that can help and share and move the industry forward. It's always been interesting. The word best practices is used a lot, but if you really look at it, and although we share best practices within the REX Roundtables, I always look at it and say, well, best practices is really what worked yesterday. Doesn't mean it's going to work tomorrow.
Right.
It doesn't mean it's going to work in the future. And that's where we've always had that philosophy of, great ideas don't equal great results. And what I've seen happen in roundtables now and even before now is that you can get great ideas in any article, any magazine, any conference, in any industry. But to get results out of that, that's a different level of execution and accountability. And that's where I know the REX Roundtables has made a difference for club operators and owners. And I think the state alliances now, we need them going forward. And we need every state to mobilize and have a bigger voice at their state level.
Somebody said, oh, this person's a great thought leader. I'm like, let me meet the action leader and not the thought leader. That might be the person that actually is the one that moves the needle. As you think about this, it's definitely somewhat of a wake-up call, not only just from a lobbying standpoint and getting our voices heard, but also, we're not necessarily competing against ourselves anymore. And all these venture capital-backed concepts that, are basically don't have any constraints on use of capital for marketing purposes, now basically becoming our competitor, which, we used to compete based on, hey, I got a new line of equipment. You can bring a friend. I got a great instructors, you could get this add-on with the massage and so on and so forth. So do you feel like the next generation of the health clubs and the fitness studios, this might've been a lesson? Unfortunately, it happened because of this reason, to say, hey, look, the level of innovation that people are going to expect, like, we need to actually punch at that level, because what we were selling before, the industry is already ahead of that now. What are your thoughts on that?
I definitely agree that, look, the clubs and the studios of the future are not going to resemble necessarily what we had 2 years ago. And I think if you go back in fitness history, go back to the Planet Fitness coming through New England originally. And everybody was so dismissive of it when they first came out. Said, oh, it's not going to work.
Mm-hmm.
But what they did is they woke up the consumer to say, hey, I'll give you the same no service that the $80 a month club's going to give you. I'm just not going to charge you $80. I'll charge you 10. And nobody thought it would work. The reality is you got to pay attention more to the consumers and how they want fitness delivered. And I think this is the next wake-up call, which is, consumers are consuming fitness virtually, digitally, outdoors. They're doing a lot of different things. And it doesn't mean that we have to be fearful of all that. We have to embrace it and say, how do we partner with different aspects of the industry to deliver the best for our consumers in our market? And who are our future consumers? Are they the same ones we had 2 years ago? And in a lot of markets, the answer is no. You got a lot of metro markets where, they're not going back to work in the cities, not just in the next couple of months, but maybe ever at the same level that they did 2 years ago. A lot of companies are figuring out they can cut expenses, have less office space, et cetera. And that's going to change.
Yeah. In New York City, I read a couple of articles about office building owners just turning them into residential and basically not waiting for the potential reemergence of urban work. When you take a look at, you make a good point of the health club from 2 years ago or from a year ago is not necessarily going to be the club that people go to. Some companies say, hey, I'm a lifestyle, and I see people walking around with an Equinox shirt, or see people walking around with a Peloton shirt or Barry's Boot Camp, or CrossFit, they actually, if you said to them, as we get off of this political campaign, like there's not many people that you go up to and say, hey, tell me about yourself. And you'd be like, oh, I'm a Republican or I'm Democratic. And they say like, hey, I do Orange Theory. Hey, I do CrossFit. Hey, I belong to Equinox. Hey, I got a wife. I got a kid. It's like one of the top 5 things they talk about is their fitness routine. And that might be inside or outside of a club. So do we need to maybe change the lens of how we think about the business that we're in? And as someone who becomes a member of my club, that might be the equivalent of the member of my fraternity, or it might be that, going back to like a member of a religious organization, like whatever you need that's within my sphere of influence, I'm going to be the authority on that. And just like you talk about Brent and you kind of going out, we're going to find the experts. Hey, you need help with nutrition. Hey, you need help with prenatal, postnatal. Like that's who you come to us and we will direct you, or we will provide that service. I feel like some of the clubs, and I've probably been at fault on my own about thinking about some of the investments we've made. We've waited for someone to come in to the 4 walls, and that's when the relationship starts. And then a pretty timid excuse is like, yeah, we send those people emails. It's like, yeah, so do 1,000 other people. Right. Like that's not, you don't build a relationship, by autoresponders.
I agree 100%. I mean, we've actually had this conversation in the roundtables 2 or 3 years ago about the club becoming the lifestyle choice, the wellness choice, the third place in your life for many people, and becoming the expert or the resource really for all the different things they need in their lifestyle. Becoming a better resource for, how you should eat, what you should eat, which we all know that's the bigger part of being healthy. Not just exercise, you need both. Sure. And also, coming out of this, it's really made us focus more on mental health, and, meditation and how do you deal with all the stress going forward? Some of the clubs are pivoting and saying, what can we do to help the young kids with learning? I mean, this remote learning is just killing the kids socially and mentally. Mm-hmm. It's just not healthy for anybody long term.
Could you imagine if you were like 12, 13 years old and had to live through this? I'm not sure how it would have transpired. I used to get in trouble. I used to get in trouble like when I was home for like an hour. And I can't imagine if I was home for like a year.
No, it's crazy. It's tough on the kids. Like my son's a college sophomore, and I told him, I said, you're going back to school. And he did, but by the time he came home for Thanksgiving, 90% of his classes were online. So he was on college campus, but his classes were online. He's in his dorm doing it. And my daughter's a high school senior. So we did 5 college visits before everything shut down. Yeah. So here it is. Most kids apply to 15, 20 schools, and they want to go see them, and they have to do virtual tours for high school seniors. And seniors, year is supposed to be like the prime of your life, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
And she's been 100% virtual, which is crazy.
Yeah.
And you look at where can the health club fit into this whole thing and become a really strong resource. We think that's where changing your model. So we've been strongly recommending all the REX Roundtable members to change their model coming at us. Think differently. Don't say, I can't wait for the freezes and cancels to come back when the vaccine and who knows what else is going to help them come back in. It's, okay, here's my top line revenue number now, or what I think it's going to be this year. Let me take my fixed expenses out of it. What can I renegotiate on a lot of those fixed? And then go through and say, what payroll do I need for what programs? And then put in a small 5% net for the first year and go, okay, there's my new business. And if they're not thinking like that, if they just cut expenses to cut, I get it. That's part of it, but that's not the answer. Mm-hmm. You got to think differently coming out of this. In 2008, the businesses had 3 choices when the recession hit. And if you look at the research that was done outside of our industry, they gave 3 examples. They said there was the ostrich that stuck their head in the sand and said, oh, it's all going to go back to normal. I'm not going to do anything. There was the bull in the china shop that just blatantly cut 30% just to cut, but didn't look at how it affects the customers. And they lost even more because the customers got a worse experience. But then they talked about the Fox, who was cunning, made cuts, but made cuts that didn't affect customer experience or change the customer experience. And I think we got to go back to that. We got to adjust the model and say, from the consumer's point of view, how do we give them better results? And not just physically, but mentally, emotionally, psychologically. We got to think differently. There's opportunities out there, and from PE money, there's money, tons of money being put into things like meditation and other things that are outside of physical exercise in the wellness fields.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting for people to try and reinvent who they are, and they're sitting on a member base that if they don't just email them, but actually sit down and talk to them, they'll find out what people want. And then you can basically recraft your business model based on, I was thinking the other day, someone's like, why is a health club not a co-op, right? Why isn't it like a country club where the members own the club? I'm like, well, because it's for profit and, the entrepreneur set up the club and then the people came. It's not like the people came and said, hey, let's go build, right, a JCC or let's go build a YMCA. So it kind of came from a for-profit direction. But at the end of the day, your only asset besides your equipment and some locker room tiles is your member base. That's your asset. So when you look and say, all right, what does my asset want to do? Instead of what do I want to do? What does my asset need from me? Because they are the ones that should be making the decisions. And you're almost you're a facilitator of knowledge and executives. And all those executives are a facilitator of members and employees who are basically, on a baseball team, you got fans and you got players. My employees are my professional players, and treat them as such. It's interesting that some people are saying, hey, I'm going to change my business model. I'm going to raise my prices. It's well, find out what people want from you and what results they want to get. And I used to spend a lot of money at Soul Cycle, and every time I walked in there, no one ever asked me, said, hey, Pete, I know you're paying $37 a class. What are you trying to achieve today? How can I help you get your results? And I feel like somehow we lost that simple question. And it seems like you and Brent and the whole REX Roundtable are trying to say, hey, think differently, but also think about what people might demand from you and ask them what they demand.
Right. And I totally agree with that. I think, you think back, the core of this industry, in some parts of the core of the industry was all based on results. But as an industry, we haven't been great at delivering results, not to everybody. It's a small percentage, yeah. But I think part of it is you got to learn to listen to the voice of the customer. I've learned a lot the last couple of years, with Blair McHaney owning MS Metrics, which is basically Medallia. And you look at what, Medallia's got the science behind it. Get a survey from American Express or Delta or Toyota or any of the car dealers. It's all Medallia-backed science. And so they listen to the customer. And based on that, we got to think differently because as an industry, there's a lot of bigger industries, more money, more resources, using a tool like that to listen to the customer and then make decisions based on that. As an industry, we haven't adapted that philosophy yet of really listening to the customer. I think we're starting to, and some of the smarter operators, we probably have 60, 70% of the REX members using Medallia, using MXM metrics. But but that's in REX. That's not the whole industry. Equinox uses them and a few other, big players too. But it's about listening to the customer and adjusting off that. Not saying, oh, screw you, we're doing this way, in my way, because it's my club as the owner. That's really short-sighted. That's like the old bodybuilding guys that would say, well, no, we're going to, this is what I want. I'm not putting in group X.
Right. So before we close out here, a lot of the clubs and the executives that attend the REX Roundtables are multi-sport operators that have pretty big facilities and campuses and have the ability to kind of repurpose that square footage. And also, I think less people are going to be going on ski trips and less people are going to be going to exotic countries that they don't know what the COVID situation or the safeties are. So do you feel like there's potentially, without better terms, like a renaissance period, almost coming back to like these multi-sport facilities actually could become what a country club was to our parents, or what, a summer camp was, where you come here and basically whatever you want to do, I can accommodate that because I have the square footage. I'm not a studio where I got 3,000 square feet. I'm not just got cardio equipment, but I'm actually like a real destination. The people that work at home, this might be the only other place that they really go, because they're actually not going to work anymore.
Totally agree. Yeah, we talked about, that staycation. You're not jumping on the plane as much or going on those trips. And that staycation, staying at home, the health club could be a really big resource. And, we've got a variety of clubs. We have, some REX members that have a dozen clubs, multi-purpose. But we've got the fitness-only models, even all the way down. The fitness-only models can also adjust. It's just a different adjustment. You may not have a big campus with outdoor pools and tennis, but you've got the ability to do wellness classes, to do meditation, to do other stuff, to do cooking classes, to bring things in from the outside that maybe you wouldn't have thought of 5 years ago. And, and I agree with you, now with everybody on a Zoom call, you're working from home, your kids are at home, you're home all the time. And some people, even the ones that are exercising at home, we think that, once we open up a little bit more and people feel more comfortable, there's going to be an explosion of people that want to go into clubs just to get out of the house.
Right. And they want it safe, and they want it clean, and they want it local, and familiar faces. So,
I was going to say, here's the ironic part is that, before the pandemic hit, clubs are one of the cleanest places around.
Right.
Right. Because of the way that their building codes are and the way they're built and everything else. It was interesting.
So we usually leave on a quote. So you got a famous favorite quote that you like to launch out, or someone's like, hey, Ed says that one all the time?
No, I got one I used this past week. So we try and use one every week or two with the roundtable guys. We used one from Peter Drucker recently. I think he's brilliant, management leader. Talked about the entrepreneur always searches for change, responds to it, and exploits it as an opportunity. And, we think that look, the only thing guaranteed in life is death and change. That's it. It's always been that way. We got bigger changes going on, and we just got to take a deep breath, not panic, figure this out. Look, we've started 2 new roundtables since March, since shutdown, that are full of really good entrepreneurs. And we're talking about even growing another roundtable pretty soon. But as long as you're open to change and willing to learn, you're not just make it, you're going to do well coming out.
Yeah. When we were growing up, when you're playing a sport, I know you're a big baseball guy, but when you're playing the top team in your division, that challenge like fires you up. And I feel like people need to look back to like their athletic side and say, hey, look, we got the best team coming in, whether that's, a big digital company that's got $1 billion that they're going to bring at us, or some competitor opens up. And, when you're in the trenches as an athlete, you respond to that. And I think the entrepreneurs also respond to that when they understand that we're playing a different game.
I agree with you. I think the entrepreneurs are at different levels, are all competitive.
Yeah.
They all want to succeed. A lot of them were athletes in their younger lives, and they don't give up that easy. That's why they do what they do.
Right. Well, you're an entrepreneur. I'm an entrepreneur. Galen's an entrepreneur. So we'll have a fourth at everyone who's listening to the podcast. So Eddie, great to see you again. Thanks for coming on. I know you're extremely busy. What you're doing is probably helping even way more people than because the knowledge that comes out of REX Roundtable, I think, is kind of, somewhat of a faucet of information that kind of gets sprinkled down. So keep up the good work. We look forward to working with you in 2021, hanging out in person. I think I owe you an Italian dinner in Manhattan and a glass of wine, and maybe we'll get a workout in together as well. So
I know. So I got one last thing I just want to throw in, if it's okay.
Fire away.
Okay. So starting next week, starting January 27th, Rex and Ursa are partnering on a new talk show that Brent Darden, Bill McBride, Blaine McHaney, and Sarah Cooperman are going to do once a month.
Oh, nice.
It's going to be more of a news show, kind of like watching ESPN.
It's going to be video.
It's not going to be a webinar on one topic. It's going to be, here's the latest news, and here's how you're going to take this and run with it and learn from it, which is pretty cool. And then the other part is that Rex and Ursa are partnering at a deeper level to open up roundtables to the entire industry.
Oh, perfect. All right.
That's something that is going to be publicly announced shortly. But I want to let you in on the inside as a good friend. I just let the secret out.
All right. Well, this is breaking news, man. I feel like Wolf Blitzer right now. Can we get this on the podcast?
Pete, I think this is our first exclusive, man.
Yeah, it might be. You better get this out before anybody else knows. So tell our editor that we got to get it up next week. All right, man. Well, good. Congrats on the progress. Keep up the good work. And shows that, you become a resource for people. And over time, it pays off. And regardless of what the circumstance is. So spread kindness and information, and it comes back to you in spades. So good to see you, man. Glad you're healthy and well. All right, man. Keep up the good work.
Thanks. Appreciate everything you guys do.
Thanks, Eddie.
Everybody. Take care, man. Bye. As we continue to build our Halo Talks email notification database, want to offer you a free $10 instant gift card from our friends at Promotion Vault. Also to show you how easy it is to offer your members and prospects and clients the ability to get desired actions out of them and reward them in real time. Go to halotalks.com, put your email address into the pop-up box, see how it works, get a free $10 gift card from us, and keep listening and making everybody great.